In this video, we're going to cover how to go about selecting the right market when investing through Section 8. So let's jump right in. Selecting the right market is a critical step in success in the overall picture of your investment strategy. And there are actually two major parts to this, and we'll break it up into two. There's selecting the market, and then there's selecting the right areas within that market. So when you're talking about a market, there's a lot of different factors that go into selecting the right one. One of the first things that you want to think about is whether you want to do this within proximity to where you live or whether or not you're going to be investing remotely. Some of the obvious advantages to investing around where you live is that you can go see the properties, you can visit properties you're looking at easily. If you're handy, you can do some of the work yourself instead of having to use contractors. You can meet with your contractors face to face. You can handle some of the day-to-day management aspect when your properties are rented out, if you choose to do so. Personally, I choose not to do so. That's not why I got into this business. It's not what I'm looking to do with my time. People have different opinions about that, and it's okay. If that's something that you're open to, you'll be able to save a little bit of money. But at that point, my opinion is that you're just trading your money for time, which is the exact thing I got into this business to avoid. But irrespective of how you feel about it, if you are in proximity to the properties that you're renting out, you have that option. The obvious downside to doing things remotely is that you're not going to be able to get everything in place, and you're going to have to rely heavily on the team that you put together, which is why building a world-class team and executing in that endeavor is so important. The benefit to doing it remotely, however, is that it allows you to expand and achieve true scale by investing in different areas that perhaps cash flow better or have better appreciation or simply give you more options if you get saturated in the area that you're in. Overall, when you're first getting started though, I would highly recommend picking one market to invest in, and once you've mastered that market, then expanding to other markets. So when it comes to selecting the market, irrespective of whether it's in proximity to where you're at or if you're doing it remotely, here are the most important factors in no particular order that you'll use to analyze that market and make sure that it's a good fit. First thing we'll cover, find a market that is in a landlord-friendly state. Meaning the laws on the state level are conducive with being a good environment that's advantageous for being a landlord. As opposed to investing in a tenant-friendly state, which can be very challenging in some instances to be a landlord and rent out properties when your options are limited on how you can go about navigating certain issues that can and will come up. For example, my home state, the great state of California, is notorious for being a tenant-friendly state, meaning the laws on the state and the local levels within that state make it very challenging in situations where a landlord has to evict a tenant or otherwise deal with problems like getting past due rent or solving disputes via legal means. Generally speaking, the law in California is not on your side. As opposed to the state I live in now, the great state of Texas, somewhat the opposite. If you have a situation where you need to do an eviction, the process in comparison is much quicker and easier and much more advantageous to you, the landlord. That's not to say that evictions are easy, irrespective of the environment. They are difficult situations. The point is simply that in a landlord-friendly state, you will be much better positioned to handle problems. Now, there is one caveat to this, and this is especially true in California. So if you're in one of these types of states, it's not the end of the world. And that caveat is that a state that is generally more tenant friendly is likely to be more progressive and subsequently have more progressive programs in place on the government level. This means that if you're in that state and investing locally, you may have additional programs that you can take advantage of on top of Section 8 to maximize your cash flow even more. So while if given the choice, I would never choose a tenant-friendly state, it's not the end of the world if you're there and you're investing remotely. Just look into all the different avenues you have and deal with the situations as best you can when they come up. Overall, it's best to choose a landlord-friendly state so you have the most options to navigate issues when they come up and you're best positioned for success. A really quick and easy way to check if your area is landlord-friendly is just to do a quick Google search. You see here we've searched landlord-friendly states 2024. You can see here there's a lot of information that's returned. A lot of these sites will have their different lists. I think the most easiest approach is really to use one of these visuals. I think it's a good one here. Just click on that. And you can see those in red are states that are considered more landlord friendly. Those in the teal and blue are more tenant friendly. You can see here that the southeast is generally considered a more landlord friendly area, and some areas of the northwest as well. This is no surprise where some of the best Section 8 markets are too for that reason. In addition to selecting a market that's within a landlord-friendly state, you also want to consider the state's tax environment. Taxes are one of the main variables that go into how you calculate your expenses, and they can differ greatly from state to state. So in addition to picking a landlord-friendly state, you want to pick one that has low property taxes. This is a critical part to know and at minimum not overlook when selecting a market. You not only want to know the tax rates, you want to know how the state goes about calculating taxes in general. For example, in the state of Texas, which is generally viewed as a tax haven, the state taxes property owners on the annual appraised value of your home. Meaning if you're in a hot market, which can otherwise be a good thing, and the value of your property on paper increases, you are taxed on that on paper increase. Even though it may not affect how much your cash flow is or how much money you have to pay those taxes, the state taxes you on how much the property is considered to be worth each year. Conversely, in a state like California, which ironically is known for being a high tax state, the state will tax you on the purchase amount of the home. And while that amount can increase each year, the increase is capped so that you're locked in to the relative amount of taxes that you're paying when you purchase the home. And you don't have to worry about that amount getting out of control down the road. Whereas in Texas, it can be like the Wild West and go up and down, and you're not sure what your taxes are going to be. It's dependent on the market dynamics. So understand not only the tax rate, but how taxes are calculated. So if nothing else, you're prepared to cover and navigate that situation as best you can. So make sure you're aware what the tax rates are, and make sure you understand what that equates to in dollars when you're calculating what your expenses are going to be and how that equates to your cash flow. A quick and easy way to check the property taxes is to do a Google search like we just did to find a landlord-friendly state. Here I just searched property tax rates by state, and you see again we have a lot of info come up. I can just hit that top one. This is going to give me a nice list that shows a ranking. They actually have it here from lowest to highest. So the lowest tax rate is in Hawaii. Then we scroll down, we'll go all the way. You can see Texas at 46 and New Jersey with the highest. So this is something that you really want to be sure you're aware of before purchasing a property, because it's really going to affect your cash flow. So in addition to picking a landlord-friendly state that has low taxes, a critical part that goes into your overall expenses is making sure you understand what the insurance costs are going to be in the market that you're selecting. Now, this variable is specific to the local area, not just the state. Louisiana is a good example that illustrates this. In southern Louisiana, where hurricanes hit the coast often, you'll face some challenges with insurance costs or even obtaining insurance in some instances. Versus in northern Louisiana, where weather formations are less of an issue, you'll have an easier time and spend less in insurance because it costs insurers less to operate in those areas. So you want to take a look at what the insurance rates are, not only on the state level, but on the local level, because that can be a difference of hundreds, if not thousands of dollars when you're selecting which market to get into. In order to check for landlord insurance by state, we'll go to our good friend Google again and search just that. Put in the search bar landlord insurance by state, and you'll see here again we have a ton of information that comes up. I'll use this blog post here and just click on that, and we can see they have a nice table and breakdown by state, which ones are the highest, which are the lowest, with some additional information and context in here. Get a nice chart that shows you the median premium by state. So this is just the median premium. It's not necessarily indicative of what your exact premium costs will be, but this will give you a good gauge of where your state ranks relative to others when you're selecting a market. So you can see it varies greatly. Some states like Louisiana has a very high premium, and then other states like, for example, Oklahoma has a relatively low premium in comparison. This will be a difference of hundreds of dollars a month, potentially. So it's not something you want to overlook, and it's at minimum something you want to know proactively when deciding what market to get into. So once you've selected a market based on landlord friendliness, tax environment, and the insurance costs, it's always a good idea to just spot check the inventory of what's available on market for purchase. That's not to say that you should base a decision solely on whether or not there are on-market opportunities, because there are many ways that you can find deals off-market, but it's a great way to spot check what the situation is going to be like for you looking for houses on market. Simply run an inventory check using Zillow or a like site where you enter in the type of house you're looking for and see how many pop up. You got a landlord-friendly state with a low tax environment and low insurance costs, but you can't find any properties to buy. If nothing else, it can really slow you down. So while you can always find deals off market, it's still something you want to heavily consider in the overall scope of what your situation is going to be like in a given market. Somewhat in that same vein, the next thing you want to consider is how many voucher holders there are. If you're in a landlord-friendly state with low taxes and low insurance and got a ton of inventory to work with, but you don't have any voucher holders to rent with, the whole thing falls apart. Because if you're in a market that doesn't have a ton of voucher holders, you're going to have a hard time finding tenants to rent out to via the Housing Choice Voucher program. That's not to say that it's the end of the world. You can still rent your property out in the private market, but here we're focusing on Section 8 as the exit strategy. So you want to do some research, which can be a Google search or calling the local housing authority, and determine how many voucher holders there are in the area so you can get the level of certainty you need to ensure with a high degree of confidence that you'll be able to find a high quality tenant to rent out to. Additionally, you want to look at standard real estate variables anytime you're looking at investing in a market. These are things like population growth. Are people moving to the city? Are people moving away? That'll affect the available tenant pool that you have, as well as different economic factors that are important. Are there different jobs in town? Is it an industrious place? Is there economic activity? What's the unemployment rate? Additionally, you want to take a look at the overall attractiveness of the city. Is it a desirable place for people to live? Are there things to do? Are there attractions? Sports teams? What's the overall feeling of the city? What's the weather like? How are the school systems? All of these things combined will factor into how your property is going to appreciate over time, which is just the real estate way of saying how your property will grow in value. Additionally, you want to look at real estate development. Is there a demand for housing? Are new houses being built? Is there an inventory shortage? All of these things combined are important things to consider when looking at a given market. A specific metric that's very important to look at is called the price to rent ratio, which is the ratio of the price of the homes that you're looking to acquire and the rent that you will achieve when renting those homes out. The last thing I'll mention here, which is very important and also easy to forget, what is the local housing authority? Are they responsive? Is their site updated? How's the experience that others have had with working with them? Remember, you will be entering into a contract with that public housing authority and interacting with them regularly. And depending on how the housing authority operates, there can be a big difference in how your experience goes. Believe it or not, there are multiple housing authorities in the United States being actively investigated for fraud. So you want to do a quick Google search on the housing authority in the area and avoid situations like that as best you can, because it's unknown what the ramifications could be down the road and how that would affect landlords participating in the program in that area. But aside from that, more commonly, you simply want to be aware of what your experience is going to be like interacting with them. So landlord friendly, low taxes, low insurance, high number of voucher holders, good amount of inventory on market, attractiveness, economic development, population growth, standard real estate variables, local housing authority dynamics, price to rent ratio, things to do, schools, appreciation. All of these things combined are what determine whether or not it's a good market to get into. Now, how you index each depends on what your risk tolerance is and what you feel is most important. Landlord friendliness, taxes, and insurance are three of the real critical ones, as well as your price to rent ratio, which is just part of the basic equation that you're going to make sure it makes sense. But weigh each factor as heavily as you see fit. Those things combined are going to tell you what the best market is for you. And in making that determination, I recommend both doing your own research and leveraging the research of others that's already been done. Emphasis on doing both. Never blindly trust something you read online or something someone else has put together. Always validate assumptions yourself to be sure that they're correct or line up with your specific goals. And with that, I'll see you on the next one.